Welcome to our class. This is Visioneering the New Year for Life and Business with NLP and Hypnosis. So when the new year rolls around, a lot of times people talk about goals. It's time to set those goals and create your plans for the coming year. But there's actually a lot of ways that goals can trip us up or that cause us even to sabotage ourselves. So the first part of this, we're going to talk about some of the very common pitfalls with goals and why we might have a love-hate relationship with goals. In fact, when I've run this class live, I often ask the audience, okay, raise your hand if you love setting goals. People look around, they know they should raise their hand, but they don't want to. And then I see, their eyes roll into the back of their head. And then I ask, okay, how many of you struggle with goals and have a hard time, feeling that kind of mixed emotion when we talk about goal setting? And then a bunch of people, everybody, almost 80% raises their hand. So this first part, we're going to explain why. And there's some ways that we're approaching goals and doing goals that are tripping us up and causing us to fail. So when we look at the coming year, then the next part, we really want to learn how to work with our mind and the layers of the mind to create intentions, goals that are more brain friendly and allow us to really get our momentum and build our momentum into the coming year. Now, we're also going to be touching on the law of attraction. What we set our mind up for, our mind will help us find those opportunities and those resources depending on where we put our mental focus. And then, of course, we're going to go through a visioneering practice with hypnosis, getting your mind on board with those things that you want to be creating in your life this year. And everything before we create it in the world around us, it starts in our mind. It starts with how we think about it, what we think about it before it comes into reality. So it's really about getting your brain on board with your goals, but as I like to call it, your intentions or your plans for the year. So first, let's jump into the pitfalls with goals. We're going to talk about these top 3 problems with goal setting and how people tend to get tripped up. And then some activities. We're going to do a little workshopping time around how to enlighten your goals, and then engaging these principles of the law of attraction, getting your brain on board, but really harnessing your mind to empower your life. And as the brain trainer in the last 17 years, I've been working with thousands of clients, all really about shifting our mental blocks, getting our brain on board. And I like to say, life, health, relationships, career, whatever you want, it all gets easier with your brain. Because often we're fighting ourselves, even though we have things that we consciously want or those goals or intentions, we're running into sabotage and those mental blocks. So let's go ahead and demystify the first part. So this is the typical goal setting cycle. We have point A, which is where we are. Point B is somewhere over there. And then we kind of decide, or we recognize how many steps it's going to take to get to where we want to go. And then we start doing the work. And it's kind of like that, being on hamster wheels sometimes, that we start putting in the work. Maybe we're doing a diet or exercise program, or maybe we are building a business or trying to put things together. So then we start putting in that work and putting in that effort. And while we're doing that work, putting in the day-to-day tasks, in the beginning, we might be really excited about the goal. We might even have a lot of motivation behind us. And we might think, okay, I am, so excited, I'm going to do it this time. But then we start to lose motivation and it gets harder to keep our momentum. And maybe even a week falls by, and we're putting things off to the weekend. I'll do it later. I'll get back. I'll make up on the weekend. And then a few more days go by. We lose that momentum and then we just fall off the wagon. But this is not the end of the goal setting cycle. Then what happens is we tuck that goal into the goals of the graveyard with all of the goals of the past. all of those things in the past where we said, I'm going to do it this time. And we've tried to get that traction and fallen off the wagon. But this is still not the end of the goal setting cycle. We then eulogize about the goals and we say, oh, I just don't know why. We beat up on ourselves a little bit. I just don't know why I can't follow through. I'm just lazy, undisciplined, unmotivated. So then the next time we go to set the goal, we get excited again about the results that we want, point A, point B, but now we're getting visitations of the ghosts of goals past. We hear our mind saying things like, oh, I've heard you say this before. What makes you think you're going to do it this time? Here we go again, you know, and we find our momentum is even taken out of our sails even before we get started. So we kind of fall into some of these traps of this self-defeat, especially if we've had a struggle in the past with some of the goals. Now, there's a few reasons the goals really are tripping us up. Number one is if our language around the goal is unclear or vague. We don't know exactly what we want to do. The second one is rigid ideas of success and failure. So you might even think about some of the ways we typically approach goals is we have this window of, okay, I'm going to do this thing. In fact, this is really well illustrated through a client story. The client came in, she's like, I want to exercise and I'm going to, we made a kind of a plan for healthy lifestyle. And she said, I want to exercise. I used to exercise like an hour a day before I went to work. It works well for me. I know I can do it. She created this goal. Okay, you've got it clear. It was mapped out. She knew when she was going to do it. She knew like what kind of exercise she was going to do. She was excited and motivated. Well, she came back the next week and I asked, okay, how did your goal go with exercising every day an hour before work? And she's like, oh, I just don't know what's wrong with me. I failed. So I'm like, well, okay, let's talk about kind of the process, because as the brain trainer, I'm interested in what's going on in the mind behind the goals, whether you follow through or not. And she said, well, I only did 3 days out of the 5. I'm like, wait, that's not failure, that's progress, right? So she wanted to do 5 days a week, but she only did 3 out of the 5. And so in our mind, we kind of think, oh, if I didn't achieve it 100%, then I've failed. So we get these rigid ideas about success and failure. And that's what this picture is of the soccer ball in the field. Often when we think of goals, we think of sports, how the goal is that little box way at the end of the field. And if we get the ball down the field, it doesn't count because we have to get it into the goal. Well, we really want to help the mind recognize that it's about progress. Progress is that forward motion. That progress gets us nearer to the completion or the achievement of where we want to be. And then the third piece of this is if we're not following through, then our mind can kind of go down into that spiral of self-defeat. Oh, I'm just lazy, undisciplined, I can't make myself do it. I don't know why I can't stay on track. We might even start pulling up reasons about why we're not staying on track. Maybe I have, I can't be focused and I struggle with, maybe it's my ADHD, or maybe it's this, or maybe it's that. And then we actually build up reasons as to why we can't follow through. So this can be problematic, especially when we want to change something in our life or get our brain on board. And it's really the real reasons that we don't follow through are in the brain, in the background of the mind, and they're running automatically. And it makes all the difference between following through or falling off the wagon. So are your goals setting you up to fail? And if you are looking at goals for the coming year, maybe you might have some on your agenda. So we're going to look at, are they clear, unclear, or vague? Do you really know what you want and how to get there? So it's not just about having point A to point B. It's about all of the steps that take you along that path to point B so you can get where you want to go. We're going to talk about that a little bit more here. Now, there's also another piece that sometimes we hold ourselves hostage with the goals. We say, someday when I have a better car, I'll feel like I've achieved this. Someday when I lose weight, then I'll feel confident and I'll be able to go to the beach. Someday when. We're going to kind of dive into that one as well. And then there's also a hidden piece that most people really aren't addressing, because when we're attacking goals, we're doing it from a conscious level. But the unconscious mind, sometimes the ways that we are setting these goals, we're not giving the unconscious mind the right message. And it's actually sabotaging our efforts. So how do we get the mind on board with what you really want? And so this is a life balance wheel. This is a life coaching tool that we use in helping people kind of prioritize different goals or different areas of their life. And you can do this just getting a clean sheet of paper. You might draw the circle in. I'll send it out to you as well, to the participants. So going around the wheel, there's a couple ways that you can use this wheel. One is to rate each area of the wheel on a scale of 1 to 10 with how satisfied you are with each area. So fun and recreation, I've been getting out and hiking and doing some active stuff. It's not quite where I'd like it to be, but I'm like halfway satisfied. So maybe it's 50%. Finances, money's going pretty well, but there's still room to grow. So maybe it feels like 7 out of 10 or 70%. So the first part is just to rate each area with how satisfied you are. And as you look at this wheel, you can kind of color in that section. So if fun and recreation, it's at 50%, I would color it into about half of that space. And this kind of denotes how well your wheel of life is moving along, because at the end of it, you'll have multiple areas covered in, but maybe there's big chunks missing. Like maybe there is friends and family, and especially over the COVID years, friends and family, we felt really isolated. So this also helps you prioritize. Now, the way that I like to really use this goal is inspiring for what would make it really satisfying, what makes life really juicy. And so this is where that next one comes in. What would make each area a 10? What would just be amazing and fabulous? And you can go ahead and line these out. We'll actually kind of break up and do a little workshopping on this. But I want you to get some general goals for what you're trying to achieve, what you want to achieve in this coming year. And just write them down on the side. You can use a blank sheet of paper. And just give yourself, put some words to some of the things that you want. Popular areas that people often pick are like health, fun, and recreation. Sometimes that doesn't even fall as a consideration with goals. We don't think about goal of having fun or creating plans to have fun. We end up taking time to have fun when we have time off. So that's also something important that you can put into your plans for this year. Now, even that word goal can kind of trip us up because it is that rigid idea of success and failure. So I like to often call goals, instead of calling it a goal, calling it a plan. And I want you to kind of notice, when you think of your plans for the coming year, does it change how you feel about it? Does it kind of soften it? That is kind of illustrating practice of NLP, which stands for neuro-linguistic programming. How the neurons in our brain, our brain cells, are actually affecting or being affected by our linguistics, our language patterns, and how that also affects our programming, how we've learned to see the world, how we've learned to see ourselves. So it says that our brain, how we think about something, how we talk about it, and kind of our history, what our brain habits have been, and especially we have brain habits around goals, right? that it all kind of works together. So we can actually maximize what our brain is focusing on or how well we follow through with something by changing and adjusting with NLP, neuro-linguistic, and changing our brain coding or our brain programming. Okay, so just get a couple ideas of goals that you would like to achieve this year, or you can call them plans or intentions. You notice even the word, just calling it a plan or an intention, has a little more wiggle room. It doesn't feel as rigid as, success and failure oriented. It makes it more into process, kind of opens it up and gives it some wiggle room. So write them out. Now, this is often how I hear people talking about their goals. They say things like, and often when people are coming in, it's because they want to change something. They want their brain to be doing something different for them. So they say things like, I want to stop yelling at my kids. I want to lose 30 pounds. I want to get out of debt. And when we think about how these words are phrased, they sound clear. Okay, stop yelling at my kids. I might know what that looks like. I want to lose 30 pounds. That's specific. Part of that process is, how am I going to do that? I want to get out of debt. That's also specific. So we think about, but yeah, they're pretty clear. However, they're not exactly giving your unconscious mind the right message. So our unconscious mind works a little differently than our conscious mind. At the conscious level, we're really logical and rational. In fact, I'll show you this next slide here with the layers of the mind. And this is often how people experience a disconnect, because we're setting goals from our conscious level. And a good analogy of how the mind works is like the layers is like an iceberg. So in an iceberg, we have the top part above the water, and this represents our conscious mind, where we are logical, rational adults. And this is often where we're setting goals. I am going to do X, Y, Z. I am going to stop yelling at my kids, get out of debt. I'm going to be healthier. I'm going to lose, 30 pounds or whatever. But then it's the automatic mind that's already running automatic habits and patterns. And that is represented by the 90% of the iceberg below the surface. We don't necessarily see it, but the unconscious mind, I like to call it the automatic mind, it's in charge of whatever's running automatically. Habits, patterns, programs, cravings, our levels of motivation, how motivated we are to do something, or how likely we are to fall off the wagon. So a lot of people are setting goals at the conscious level, but it's actually giving our mind kind of the wrong message. At the conscious level, it can sound clear, but if we're saying it in terms of don't or not, the unconscious mind doesn't hear it. So here's a quick example of this. Don't think of a yellow butterfly, because as you do, it's going to turn blue and fly right out the door. And what did your brain do? Well, it had to picture what you told it not to do. And in that mental picture, it's actually cueing your brain. So even when we apply this to those previous goals, I want to stop yelling at my kids. What mental picture do you get when you think of that phrase, I want to stop yelling at my kids? We actually see or envision ourselves yelling at the kids or yelling at a coworker or wherever that is, right? What about the next one? I want to lose 30 pounds. Thinking about, are there things that you've lost that you felt really good about? Unless maybe it's an ex that you were able to, that you broke up with after you realized you weren't good for each other. So typically things that we lose, we have to run around and go find it again, or we feel that feeling of loss. Even that phrasing, I want to lose 30 pounds, directs our mind to what we don't want. We might feel the heaviness of it, the extra weight. And then that other term, I want to get out of debt. So it's clear, because we know when we're out of debt, we have zero balances on the credit cards or wherever that is. But what does it tell your mind to reference? What is it telling your mind to focus on? What are the feelings that are connected with that? It's kind of the pit we dug for ourselves, the heaviness of debt. Maybe even for some people, it's also like the shame of debt, or the shame of money. So these are not brain friendly. So we really want to translate our goals, our plans, into language, into focuses that are brain friendly, that helps our unconscious automatic mind get on board. And so this is where we want to change the language to be more clear, and also directing the unconscious mind in the way that you want it to work for you. So we want to give the mind messages about what we want rather than what you don't want. And a lot of times we're terming our goals in terms of the problem. We recognize things that we want to change or problems that we want to fix, but we want to make sure that we're giving the mind the positive directions. And so I have this little taxi driver here, because the taxi driver is kind of like if, you know, you're to get a Lyft or an Uber, they come and pick you up and they're like, okay, where do you want to go? And you're like, well, I don't want to go to the library. Okay, where do you want to go? Well, I don't really want to go grocery shopping. Okay, it's still not good directions, right? So you might think about like your automatic mind, your unconscious mind, as that taxi driver. It needs to know where you want to go, and it has to have a positive mental picture in order to help you get where you want to go. So coming back to the layers of the mind, at the conscious level, we're kind of setting that goal at the conscious level, but how those goals are not giving your unconscious mind the right messages. So the unconscious mind, its language is more like what your mind does when you dream at night. It goes through story, it goes through imagery, it goes through metaphor, symbolism, and feelings. These are things that work or speak to the unconscious mind more directly. So if we want to get the unconscious mind on board with the goal, we want to make sure we're using its own language with utilizing those mental pictures. So instead, think back to your list with your goals or your plans there. And now I want you to kind of go through and rewrite these goals. We're going to take a break here in a minute and get a chance to kind of share and talk about how we can adjust these things that we want to making them more brain friendly. So the first one, I want to stop yelling at my kids. Of course, these are examples. And if I want my mind to have a better mental picture about what that actually means, I might phrase it, I am becoming more patient and calm with my kids. I want to imagine myself being more patient and calm with my kids. I want to give my mind that really positive picture to tell it where we want to go. What about the next one? I want to lose 30 pounds. Well, it's the heaviness, what we don't want. We might even feel this stuck energy of that. For some people too, it's kind of like an anchor or a trigger because we tried it before and it's the same situation that we've been in. And so we also go down that downward spiral. But if we change the phrasing to this, I am releasing the extra weight. Notice how it feels. It feels a little different. It feels like a little more wiggle room. It feels more positive or more hopeful. And what about the next one? This is kind of building on that as well. I am becoming my ideal weight. I am becoming. Now, I like the words becoming because it puts the goal, instead of that rigid success and failure, it puts it into more of the process. It's a process, and maybe we are becoming better and better day by day. And if we're becoming, then the mind doesn't tend to fight with you as much. When we say, I am being healthy, this is where people run into challenges with affirmations, because we're saying things like, I am rich. And then the mind starts arguing, no, you're not. You couldn't pay a blah, blah, blah bill last month. And then we kind of get into this conflict. So if we put it into the process of becoming, I am becoming better with money. I am learning to manage money more easily and in ways that really work for me. I am creating flow of money. Of course, that would address, I want to get out of debt. So really kind of look at some of these things, these intentions, these plans that you've had for the coming year. How can you change the language to address your unconscious automatic mind so we can harness that energy and get it more on board with these things in life that you want to create? So here's a couple of keys to making those brain-friendly goals. State it in the positive. Replace even that word want has an effect on how we think, how we feel about it, and how our brain responds to it. So even replace that word want with as if it's happening now. I am creating, I am becoming, and make it process oriented. This also helps to get us out of that trap of success and failure. It's a process. So in that process oriented, I am becoming, I am learning, I am creating, I am practicing, right? And then use words that inspire positive feelings. So we kind of go back to this list. I am releasing extra weight. Does it inspire a positive feeling? I am becoming my ideal weight. Or another one I really like, I am becoming healthier and healthier. Now, if we're doing healthier and healthier, we're adding in a little bit of hypnotic language to tell the mind to build on it as we become better and better. Healthier and healthier. Money is becoming easier and easier. So that's just a little tip there with hypnotic language. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a quick break in here. I'm going to open up the lines and unmute everybody. We'll have a little chance to kind of discuss. All right, so now that you have kind of some brain-friendly words to your goals, which are hopefully written in these formats. It's stated in the positive. It's telling the mind to go toward what you want or to recognize the positive outcome. Process-oriented. So that gets us out of that kind of fear of success and fear of failure. I am becoming. I am choosing healthier and healthier foods. Even that word choose can make a big difference for a healthy lifestyle, folks, too. And words that inspire positive feelings. Does your goal cause you to kind of light up inside when you say it? Or do you feel kind of that heaviness of, oh, I should do this, but I can't make myself do it? So even just by picking different words, we can kind of inspire more positive things about it. And we want the mind to be more clear about what is the outcome of this? Oh, so here's another thing that you can add. I am becoming, well, let me use the choose one as the example. I am choosing healthier and healthier foods so I can play with my grandchildren more. So for some people who have things like osteoarthritis or difficulty with their joints, these things could really be helped by certain food choices. However, sometimes it's hard to stay on track. But if you can imagine yourself doing more of what you love, and if that's wrapped into the language with your goal, it becomes more inspirational. It's reminding your mind about why you want this and what the outcome is going to be, what the reward is going to be. So I encourage you to continue going through those different areas of the life balance wheel and create at least one positive message for each one. Now, when I help people kind of work through or pick goals and make change over time, you just kind of want to prioritize. Having 5 goals is too much for us to kind of focus on at one time, but having your top 3, even your top 1. This week, I am just going to make sure I take my food with me to the office. You know, just having small steps along the way that you can do. Because sometimes we overwhelm ourselves, and especially as the new year window. Oh yeah, life is full of possibilities, so I'm gonna change it all. Then it becomes overwhelming, and then we kind of give up on it. So getting prioritized, get specific, And make sure your language that you're using with your goal or your plan is really kind of inspiring. Okay, so here's another consideration. This is sometimes we're holding ourselves hostage with our goals, and it sounds like someday. So we kind of think in the background of our mind, sometimes we're picking these random goals. Someday when I lose more weight, then I can go to the beach. I've worked with a lot of folks with healthy lifestyle, and we don't recognize why we want this goal, but we think that life's going to be better once we achieve it. Here's another one. Someday when I make more money, then I'll feel successful. Then I'll feel good about myself. Someday when I get a better car, then I'll just feel more respect, like I've arrived. Someday when I get a better house. So kind of to illustrate this, I'm going to share a client story. And this was Anna, and she came in, she wanted to go for a promotion. She's like, there's a promotion, I'll get a pay raise. I know I want to achieve this goal. It's going to require that I work extra hours. And so I sat with her and looking at, okay, so I started just asking her this question. Thinking of this raise that would give you more money, getting this raise and this promotion, what would it get for you? I'm missing my words, right? And she says, well, I would get more money. So that was kind of an easy answer. Okay, getting more money, what would that get for you? Oh, because then I could take my son to Disneyland. I could do vacations. Great. And taking your son to Disneyland, and what would that get for you? Oh, then I would have one-on-one time with my son. Great. And what would that get for you? Well, then I'd be a better mom. So you can recognize how in this goal to make more money is going to cause her to take more time away from her kid so that she can make more money so that they can go to Disneyland. So ultimately, it's about quality time with her son and being a good mom. So if she were to go for this goal out in the world, she'd actually be taking away from the very thing that she wanted, because it's really about quality time with her kid. And so this isn't to totally negate the goal, like don't go for the promotion, but it's one way to help you reconsider, is the goal really important? The other thing that we ended up encouraging is, okay, how can you have quality time with your son now? And even while she's going for the goal, that she could be working toward that promotion, but she's also really taking care of the things that she really wants and the things that are really important to her. So when I asked her, how could you have quality time with your son now and be a good mom, even while you're working toward this goal? And as we thought about it, she said, oh yeah, well, I could read to him every night before bed and just make some like special time with him before he goes to bed. So great. She is being intentional about taking care of the higher why of the goal and putting it into her life now so that she can go on, so she can actually go for the goal that she wants, but she's not fighting against herself in achieving the goal. Because it doesn't have to be working or having time with her son. There's ways to integrate both, right? That if she would spend all of her time working toward the promotion, it would be taking time away from her time with her son, which was really important to her. So as she recognized this, the higher why of the goal is really to have more quality time with her son. And how can you do this now? So instead of getting caught in the someday trap, when I make more money, then we can go to Disneyland, then I'll be a good mom, then I'll feel good about myself. Okay, how can you have the essence of this now? And you'll find with a lot of your goals that the reasons that we pick it are often we're not aware of, because our mind thinks this thing will be better if I achieve X, Y, Z. But then we're not really recognizing that the fuel to stay on track with the goal is actually that higher why. So here's how to not fall into the trap of someday and sabotaging. How can you have the essence of what you want now? So someday when I lose weight, what I often hear, because when I talk with people about healthy lifestyle, they often say things like, yeah, if I lose weight, then I'll just feel good about myself. I'll be healthier. Maybe it's about having, more energy, more health. Maybe it's about playing with the grandkids. Maybe it's about wearing different clothes or feeling like they have more choice. So recognizing at the higher level, there is a reason that our mind is picking this goal, but how can we wrap it up into now in a smaller way, which then becomes the fuel for what we're wanting to achieve? So going around this life balance wheel, what's your higher why? And here's how you get to it. Just ask, what will it get for you? So fun and recreation, I was going to give an example of that one, but we have the example of the mom going for the promotion, but she really wants quality time with her kid. But if you just keep asking that goal, what will it get for you? What will that get for you? What will that get for you? It'll bring to light this higher why that is behind the goal. And this is kind of a higher priority. Usually it comes down to a feeling that we are actually looking for more love, more okayness, more connection to people, connection to God. We're also looking for happiness and peace. So those are the 5 core ones, just to give you a shortcut there. But typically it'll come to a feeling that there is some feeling that is inspiring us to reach for this goal or this plan. All right, so jumping back into this PowerPoint, what we really recognize from finding that higher why, asking this question, what will it get for you? It really comes to a feeling. And as I mentioned earlier, there's pretty much, it comes down to 5 feelings: peace, love, joy, okayness, and connection. And connection can be to other people. Connection can also be to ourselves or to higher power. But these are the things that are motivating us behind the goal. But this is also how it kind of trips us up, because we think if I don't achieve this goal, then I won't feel happiness, or I won't feel like I'm being a good mom, or I won't feel like these things that we really want. So going through this exercise with your goals can really help you bring to light what it is that your unconscious mind is seeking in this process of making life better, what it's really wanting to feel. So now we're diving into the portion of magnetizing your mind. And yes, this goes to law of attraction. And law of attraction is really simple. So some people have been working with law of attraction for many years. Some people are kind of new to it. But at the simplest level, it's getting your automatic mind on board with your energy system so that your mind is looking for and connecting with opportunities, the resources, the people that can help you move this, whatever you're wanting, that can help you move it forward in your life. So here's kind of 6 key principles for doing this. So we first talked about how we talk about the goal, or how we create that plan in our mind. And then, so that first principle is to speak it, to use that powerful language, that positive language. The second is to write it as if it's now, as if it's happening now. So you're getting a really positive mental picture with it. The third one is to full imagining, letting yourself feel it, be it, experience it. And it's really about that feeling level. So as we mentioned earlier, the language of the unconscious mind is those mental pictures, images, stories, metaphor, and feelings are the things that work with your unconscious mind more deeply, more quickly to help it update and get on board. The fourth one is to empower it, and empower it with that feeling, that energy. And then 5, letting yourself believe it. And then 6 is to clear the sabotage. So here's the 6 key principles. Now we're going to touch on these a little bit before we go into the hypnosis portion, where we're going to bring this all together and really help your mind, your unconscious mind, get on board with this bigger vision of this coming year. So of course, we talked about speaking it, the power of language, how to harness, words to create that positive connection with our plans and goals. And now if we want to upgrade that language, we write it as if it's now. So we mentioned this earlier as well. Instead of I want to eat healthy, oh, here's another little kind of tool or tip here. Tip is I can eat healthy. So that word can really opens up possibility. Can means anything is possible. I can eat healthy. Is that true? Yeah, it's true. I may not choose to all the time, but I can choose to eat healthy. And even adding that word choose, that choice, helps your mind recognize that it is a choice. And then that helps us be more clear. So it's often when people are doing diets or restrictive things, they're saying, I can't have this, I can't have that. And then our mind kind of hyper focuses and we want it even more, right? So here's a few little tips for kind of adjusting this language to even upgrade it even more. I can choose to eat healthy. I am choosing to eat healthy. And then as I had introduced earlier, a little hypnotic language. Let your plan build on itself. I am becoming healthier and healthier. I am creating more and more energy, or I am creating more mind-body balance in my day-to-day. And now the next segment, so now that we have the plans kind of written out or defined, and we're giving our mind the mental pictures of where we want our life to take us, now we want to create that mental map. And it's about imagining it. Our imagination is an amazing tool. In fact, looking around you, everything that's around you started out as a concept in someone's mind. It started out as an imagination in someone's mind. Whether it's the phone that you probably have right there with you, somebody had the concept, they thought about it, they mapped it out in their mind before they brought it to reality. So this is true of anything that we want to create in life. We imagine it first, and then we take the steps to put the pieces together. We find the resources or the people, and then it can come to fruition. But just having the mental map first can be a really fun part of the process as well. So letting yourself imagine it. What does it feel like to achieve this? What does it feel like to be healthier and healthier? What does it feel like to think of to have more fun, or to take time for fun and friends, like one of the goals earlier? And how can you kind of paint the picture in your mind? And then, of course, we want to make sure that these plans are inspiring those positive feelings. We can empower that imagination with the feeling of it. What do I feel when I've achieved this? I feel freedom. I feel ease and flow in my life. I feel connected with the people. I feel fun if I'm taking time to take care of my fun and recreation needs, right? So empower it with that feeling. Let it be fun and expansive. Let those positive feelings flow, which those positive feelings become magnetic to your mind, your unconscious mind, and your mind says, yes, we want more of this. And it really spurs that, motivation, or that inspiration to connect with what you're seeking. And then that final step is to believe it. It's coming. And this also helps when it's a process. I believe the pieces are coming together. I'm meeting the right people. I'm connecting. I'm making the time for this in my life. It's all coming together. So around this as well, there's some positive language that we can be giving ourselves, because sometimes we pick goals that we've been frustrated with, where we have fallen off the wagon or we have put them in the graveyard. So again, if we can add some more positive language to this, this can also really help spur the mind and the unconscious mind to empower staying on track with these things that we want. Or not just staying on track, to recognize the opportunities, the people, the resources that come together to make this a reality for ourselves. Because part of what we notice and what we don't notice has a lot to do with the filters of our mind. So just by creating that, imagining that mental map and inspiring it with those positive feelings that we get from asking that why, what will it get for you? And now when we add in language, it's all coming together, it's working together, perfect timing, I'm figuring it out, I'm taking the steps, I am becoming. Then this can really empower us to intentionally create our steps into our future. Now, clear the sabotage. I'm just going to touch on this quickly, is that sometimes we're setting a goal or a plan, and part of our mind doesn't want it. Like, I feel good about this goal. I know I should do it, but part of me doesn't. Part of me doesn't want it. We often run into this with weight loss or healthy lifestyle goals. I like to call it healthy lifestyle because it just sounds easier, right? And so part of us sets this goal, I'm going to eat healthy. And then we have cravings that come up, or we get frustrated and we have an emotional day. Maybe we dive into a bag of chips or popcorn, or for me, I still like to bake. So that tends to be where I fall off the wagon, so to speak. But thinking, is there a downside to achieving this? And this question can help us kind of recognize where those bumps are going to be about moving forward with our plans. Again, if it's in process, that helps us to recognize its steps along the way. It's not just one and done often, that there are steps, there is a process. So that can also help to ease the journey a little bit. But asking this question, is there a downside? Or another way to phrase it, is there a part of me that doesn't want this? And this will highlight or bring to light what that kind of inner conflict might be. For a lot of places where we feel stuck, part of me wants to, part of me doesn't. There's some part of our mind that is afraid of achieving this goal. In fact, this is kind of well illustrated through one client. He's a realtor working a lot of hours. He's working nights and weekends, and he came in, he's like, I don't know what's wrong. I just cannot make myself call people back. I know I can grow my business. I know who to call. I enjoy calls. I enjoy talking to people. I'm a people person, but I just can't make myself do it. And so kind of using your hands out in front of you, if one hand represents achieving the goal, and then what's on the other hand? What are the parts that don't want to achieve it? And kind of when we went through this NLP process, what he recognized is that part of him really wanted to grow his business so that he could have more money, have more freedom, but part of him was saying no. And when we explored it, it's saying no because it thought that if he were to make these extra calls and get this extra business, he would have even less time for himself. And he was already working 7 days a week and nights and weekends, and he didn't have any self-time. He didn't have any time for himself and his wife to enjoy the things, the success that he'd already achieved. So he had to make a deal with himself that 1 day a week, Monday, would be his boat day, taking the wife out on the boat, enjoying life, and really letting himself recharge. So this is an example of how sometimes part of our mind is on board and ready to move forward, but part of our mind is holding back. And then we're usually fighting that part of ourselves. But when we look a little deeper, there's actually reasons as to why we might be fighting ourselves and why part of our mind is not on board. And usually it comes down to hidden fears or even like ways that we need to take into account more of our priorities, the things that are really important to us. So that's a way to look for where is the sabotage, or where could I get tripped up? And here's some ways to recognize if you're going to run into some sabotage. If you feel at odds with a goal, like I want this, but it feels heavy or it feels not doable, that can be an indicator. If you feel mixed feelings, yeah, part of me wants this, but I'm going to have to make myself do it. I'm going to work really hard. Or if you get frustrated, and this is true if we've had, trials in the past when we've tried to make ourselves do it, or discipline, I say, is kind of a dirty word. We're trying to make ourselves do something we didn't want to do in the first place. But we want to feel inspired, not just motivated, inspired for work moving forward. Or when your mind argues with you, that's really another indicator. Yeah, there's kind of another little quick section too, talking about the vision boards here. The reason for doing vision boards is that we give our mind a mental picture. So we have something positive on there, and we're reminding the mind to stay focused with it. Another way to kind of we can create these kind of brain reminders in different formats. So if we're doing a vision board, it's going to be a visual format. We have a picture, an image of what we want. In speaking it, we might take these positive intentions we have for ourselves, and you might read them to yourself and record it. There's easy free apps that you can put on your phone and hear yourself say these intentions, like, I am choosing to eat healthier and healthier. I am feeling more energy. I am making time for fun and friends. I am, you get the idea of how we're changing these things. And then imagining it, feeling it, giving yourself some of that meditation time helps reprogram your automatic mind to get on board with these things that you're wanting to create in life. So let me just wrap this up really quick, and then I'll open up the lines and we'll do a little more open discussion. So here's a resource for vision boarding. If you want to have those visual reminders in front of you, you can go to canva.com, and there you can play around with some different templates and formats. Having those positive pictures in front of you is a great way to remind your mind. You can also get together with a few friends, get some old magazines, cut out those pictures, and paste them onto a board that you put like in your bedroom or somewhere in your house that you have as that reminder. This is what I am moving toward. This is what I'm continuing to embrace, embody, to take the steps for. And then here's some action steps. So dial in the life balance wheel. So go around and you can flesh that life balance wheel, flesh it out with more of your intentions for this year. Writing your list with that powerful language. So just like we did with state it in the positive, make sure it's brain friendly, make sure it's creating images that inspire you and bring up good feelings for you. And then revisit the hypnosis meditation that we just did, stepping into your positive future. And pay attention and clear out those mental blocks. So especially along the way, if you're noticing resistance or frustration, those are indicators that there's probably some underlying sabotage, some part that is not on board. And so as we've come together tonight to kind of create those intentions and plans, and we often have that motivation in the beginning of the year, but there is a definite benefit to surrounding yourself with high vibe people. And if you want to stay in high vibes, one, maybe you have this in your friends and family groups around you, which is great. But a lot of times, as we learn more too about being intentional, being clear with our language, and really kind of putting our mind more in charge of creating the results in our life, it can be very useful to connect with more people that are on the same journey of uplifting others and uplifting life around you. So when we are in high vibes and connecting with high vibe people, and high vibes is like high vibrations, when we feel good in life, when we feel inspired, motivated, excited, these are the things that really fuel us. So this is also some of the reasons here to stay in high vibes, keep your energy up, because this is where that law of attraction really makes your mind magnetic to connect you with the things that you're wanting, or the things that you're wanting to create in your life. When we keep our energy up, our emotional system kind of in that higher elevated place, this also empowers our ability to connect with these things, these opportunities that are coming toward us, and really allowing ourselves to embrace those. It also relieves the stress in our mind and our body. So a lot of the stress that we're actually responding to are negative, called stinking thinking, negative thoughts in the background of our mind that we're listening to that aren't really true, but it's stuck on repeat. They can certainly feel true, but these are some of those things that are holding us back, is what our brain is running. And when we stay in high vibes and surround ourselves with people that are uplifting and supporting, it also synchronizes your brain into your goals, to recognizing the resources, the people, the opportunities. We can get out of stuck quicker, recognize the resources, and it's just more fun. It feels better. It feels better to make sure that we're staying in high energy, high emotional states. And it fuels creating what we're creating in our life. So this is a reason that I have created this new community. It is a pilot program. We go through 6 months. It's called Mindshift to Joy Community. Because as we looked at earlier, asking that question, what is the higher why? What do we think our goals are going to get for us? Mostly it comes down to joy, fun, freedom, peace, right? And joy is a huge piece of the puzzle. When we tune into joy, it's like life flows more easily. So here's the elements of the safe, supportive community, where you can connect with a high vibe tribe, like-minded people that are also in the process of up-leveling life. But also, if we're not feeling joy in life, we are depriving ourselves that we can actually create and have and embrace joy, and it moves everything in life along. And so this is the vision of what I'm creating. It's a 6-month program. We want to get out of stuck quicker, rise above the mind traps, remind your mind to be in the possibility and opportunity of life, to feel better in your everyday, to get excited for what makes you come alive, right? It's a booster shot for your brain. We have in the Mindshift community, I'm going to be sharing a lot of hypnosis tools, getting out of the mind traps that keep us stuck. And we want to get inspired by great ideas and embracing your potential, building up the belief in yourself that you can be what you want to create in life. And also living with joy and aliveness. So instead of being stuck in someday when then I can take a vacation, we want to get to joy now. And you can do that in your mind. You don't necessarily have to take the cruise to Alaska or the cruise to Europe or whatever. Sometimes we're kind of putting joy off to someday as well. Someday when I have time, I'll get to it. But we want to embrace it every day, even in the background of our mind, while we're working toward our plans and intentions in the year, because it's really joy that fuels everything else. So you can find out more about this. Again, it's a pilot program. We're going through 6 months, and really it's about how do we get the mind on board with joy? How do we address the sabotage along the way? And so you'll see this if you go to the URL, thebraintrainerllc.com/classes. There down the page, you'll see this picture, which click on that, it will take you to the all the details of this program. So I want to get these inspirational, these hypnosis meditations into your hot little hands. So I have the Brain Trainer app, which is my app that you will download to your phone. So it's super easy and convenient. And all of this stuff is going to be right there and available for you. Now, I also wanted to keep it really affordable for people. So this pilot program is $33 a month. So really easy, but I'm going to make it so worth the shift in your mind to getting to joy. And that's the purpose of this group, is to come together and really have that space, safe place to share and connect and uplift and support each other in this process of life, in the process of really manifesting, attracting what we want to create in life. And we do it through joy, whether we're aware of it or not. When we're happy, things fall into place. We're synchronized. And that, by the way, is my word for the year, synchronicity. And to notice those synchronicities. Well, we get there when we feel joyful. And there's so many reasons we can be joyful in our life, even if we're not satisfied with where we are. If we recognize it's a process and things are coming together, that helps fuel us forward too. All right, thanks for coming tonight. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. And I'm going to open up the lines, and we're going to have a little chance to share any other questions here for tonight's class. So you can go to the link, thebraintrainerllc.com/classes, or reach out to me if you're interested in the community.